Yo, what is going on, everyone? I'm back with another review video. It is actually going to be on my Atlantis Mini and the Lamzu Energon pad. I know, very long overdue. I have been on somewhat of a hiatus, just doing a whole lot of new things, starting some new stuff in my personal life, and then just like overall doing new stuff with training. So I want to be experimenting. But yeah, enough of that. Let's get into the review. So first off, I want to talk about these skates. I did opt to put in the big ones instead of the small ones, and I actually do regret that. I think if you're using this mouse, I feel like using the small feet are just a lot better, mainly because you're going to be getting a lot less surface material. And I do feel like these feet are honestly a little slow for how they look. They do look very eerily similar to BTL and Tiger ice skates, but they don't really play all that similar to them. They feel very similar to what the Vancer Ice feet are like. So similar to core pads in like that slower-ish area, but the dynamic glide is really nice on these feet. So it's really just the initial friction and then the stopping power. There's a lot of stopping power on these feet, even for how light this mouse is. The next thing I want to talk about are the main clicks. In typical Lamzu fashion, absolutely beautiful clicks. The clicks are supposed to be the same, and these feel absolutely impeccable. I love how Lamzu implements switches. They feel very tactile. There is a slight bit of post travel, but it is actually that good post travel where it'll just fly the switch up so that it feels a lot more tactile. It feels like it rebounds faster, I guess is kind of the best way that I could possibly put it. On the topic of buttons, I would like to talk about these switches over here. These switches feel really nice. I have to be completely honest. These switches feel absolutely amazing. And they did actually make it a little bit better. You can't press them into the shell as much as the original, but you still are able to do that, obviously. And they're placed phenomenally. They're going to be right below my thumb. Sorry about the change in brightness. They're going to be right below my thumb, so I can easily access both side buttons perfectly fine. The scroll wheel is really nice now using a TTC Gold encoder. The main thing that they did change was the press in, and it's so much lighter than the OG Atlantis, but it still retains a little bit of tactility, which is really nice. I think that is one of the most important things for me is how clicks feel. I really like very tactile, typically harder to press in things. And the one thing that I didn't like in the OG was definitely the click in feeling. So pinging was very irritating for a lot of shooters, but thankfully this makes it so much easier to use. The last thing is obviously the shape. Please watch my last video. I will have it in the description, and I compared it to the three mice that I feel it is most similar to. It's still obviously a very unique and original shape. The main comparisons that I did make were going to be the Final Mouse Starlight Small with the infinity hump attached to it, and then also the MM710 wireless, which I feel are the most similar. They're both very small claw focused mice. With the exception of the Final Mouse, obviously, I had to mod it to make it more claw focused. And the most interesting thing that people were actually saying about the Mini is that it is very XM1 like. And I would kind of disagree. The XM1, when holding it in my hand, all of this back area is filling my palm, unlike even the OG Atlantis. And I feel like I could just pull it more into my palm, much like the OG, mainly because of this exaggerated slope rather than just the very steep drop off I feel like the XM1 has. And the other thing too is this, even though it is a mini version, actually fills my palm more because of the height. This fills it more at the width for the XM1, but the height feeling, so more of like my palm contact up in this middle area of my palm. But unlike this whole bottom portion of my palm over here is going to be more filled with the XM2WE. However, one thing that a lot of companies kind of ignore is actually the width of a lot of claw focused mice. I prefer more narrow mice, much like the ZA13C that I still am using even to this day. It just gives me a lot of precision, mostly because I tend to grab the mouse with my fingertips. I know Pincer Claw uses these inner hand muscles more for stability, but I actually use my fingertips on these three main fingers, and then I tend to relax these two so I can gravitate more towards the front because I do prefer lower button height mice. So in order to do that, I would have to relax my two middle and pointer finger. Getting that out of the way, the shape is absolutely amazing. Although I did main tons of larger mice, the Endgame Gear mice, the Death Adder V3, G3, even a G Pro, I feel like are definitely considered larger mice nowadays when you have things like the HSK or even the HTX, which are going to be much smaller in my opinion, especially the ATX, but you know, video for these two bad boys on its own. But because I feel like people think that those mice are much larger, and I do tend to gravitate towards those mice, I tend to honestly like medium to larger mice. So it is weird gravitating so closely to a very small mouse. However, it does fill all the right areas of my palm. The main thing that I really like on this mouse compared to the OG is the width. The OG, after long periods of use, would actually cramp my inner hand muscles because of how narrow it was. But because of the back support, my muscles over here are actually able to get a lot more relaxed, which is really weird because the OG is literally bigger, so you would assume that it is going to be a big difference, at least in the terms of comfortability. But I'm not too sure why. I do actually prefer the Mini much more than the OG, which is really weird. Again, I gravitate towards medium mice, but instead of repeating myself, I'm just going to move on to reviewing the pad. Look at the stitched edging on the pad. That is absolutely incredible. It is lower than the Surface for their first pad. That is absolutely incredible in my opinion. Stitched edging is the only quality thing I tend to really care about because, again, I use a lot of vertical movement, especially in the games that I play. So lower stitched edging just makes it so much easier for me to gravitate towards these types of pads. And the other thing too is the Surface is phenomenal. But before I get into that, the base, it's really weird. It's like a no design base. It's just perfectly flat, but it works exactly like an artisan base. I can't move it anywhere. I've had no issues with it not laying flat because it comes flat packaged. Holy shit, their first fucking mouse pad is going to be this amazing in quality. The only thing is this thing over here. It is printed onto the pad, but actually this is the first time I've ever done this. I literally don't feel it on my skates, which is really nice. But now onto the Surface itself. In layman's terms, it is basically a worn-in Raiden with a little bit more stopping power and not as fast of an initial glide. However, it is slightly different. First off, the initial friction is going to be a little bit heavier and the dynamic friction as well, and the stopping power is going to be much better on this pad than it would be the Raiden. So to be completely honest, if you have never owned a Raiden before and you want to try it, I would highly suggest this pad. It is going to be half the price, slightly smaller. This pad is at 450 by 400. You know, artisan sizes are 490 by 420, super close to the God size 500 by 500. But this pad has never given me any issue, and I aim very high. I aim pretty much like right here, so you can see that I only have like, you know, an inch or two, which is a lot, guys. Don't get me wrong. An inch or two is fucking huge. But, you know, it's not a whole lot of vertical movement. You know what I mean? Tons of movement for other things. But yeah, other than that, I think this pad is completely flawless. I've been using it very frequently for a long period of time with tons of different mouse feet. The only thing is, like I said, I would suggest just keeping it to the stock skates with the small 4 skates. It doesn't have that wobble issue the OG one had because they listened. They made this bottom skate, and then they also made the 4 feet much thicker, and they put it all the way at the edges over here, so you have no wobbling issue like you did in the OG. Again, it's great to see this coming from a new company. They clearly care immensely about the community and just want to continuously give us good products that are actually going in to improve in-game performance. But yeah, that's pretty much all for the review. I highly recommend both products. I can't see getting a different small claw mouse. Your options are honestly pretty limited, because you can have like the ZA13C, one of the best shapes in my opinion that I've ever used. You have like the HTX, but it's not really claw focused. It's very Viper Mini-like, but again, review on that on its own. And you have pretty much the Cooler Master Mouse. Are you going to get a Lamzu or a Cooler Master Mouse? You know what I mean? I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, anyway, I should be back to uploading videos, although sadly they will be in the dark, much like this, so it'll be at the end of my day, mainly because I wake up at like 4 or 5 a.m. to go to the gym in the morning, and then, you know, I study throughout the day, so kind of this is the only real time I can actually get to record anything, and I do want to keep making content as long as I am around in this community. So, but yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.